Language is important not only in the ways that it connects us to our culture, but in how it shapes our thinking. There's considerable research on how your first language structures your thinking, and also in how speaking more than one language can change brain patterns. Over 5,000 languages are currently spoken in the world. Mandarin Chinese is spoken by more than any other, 848 million speakers, while isolated languages may have only a few hundred speakers. Languages with fewer than 1,000 speakers are generally considered endangered and may disappear within a few generations if not actively preserved. To define a language as separate, there must be major linguistic differences. Dialects are minor differences within a language. For example, American English and British English are dialects of English, but French has too many differences and is therefore a different language. We often refer to the standard form of a language, which is the formal way in which a language is spoken or written. In American English, this could be equated to the way in which news broadcasts are delivered, or the way newspapers and scholarly papers are written. In everyday life, we typically use a less formal structure. We sprinkle our language with slang, we abbreviate in texts, we relax the structure and pronunciation into what we might call our home language, the version we speak at home or among friends. But it's important to be able to code switch, as sometimes these home languages can differ greatly between regions, almost to the point of a dialect, which can impede communication. If we switch to the standard form when speaking in public or writing papers, we can reach a wider audience, and that more formal tone can also imply more seriousness and professionalism than our more casual home language. Anywhere you encounter people who speak other languages, you may find you need to operate in a lingua franca, a language common to both of you. This term comes from a medieval Italian phrase that originally referred to a hybrid language spoken around ports of the Mediterranean, but literally means the Frankish tongue, referring to the Frankish Empire that dominated Central Europe, based in what we now call France. During the Roman Empire, Latin was an important lingua franca. During the 18th and 19th centuries, French was the court language of Europe. And today, English is the lingua franca of the Internet and many international business meetings. English is also used by most airline pilots. A few years ago, Malcolm Gladwell attributed the frequency of crashes by Korean airlines to the highly deferential and interpretive nature of the Korean language, and that switching to English helped him to cut down on crashes due to language imprecision. Whether or not this is true, it's certainly helpful for international airline pilots to have a common language rather than switch languages as they fly around the world. Here's a quick map of major official languages around the world. Notice the languages in Africa, which most often reflect the European powers that colonized them. Languages are often grouped into families, which have a core of similar words that are carried from the proto-language. The Indo-European family is the largest and most diffuse. You can see here it includes many common European languages like French and Spanish in the Romance family, and English and German in the Germanic family, as well as the Slavonic and Baltic languages of Eastern Europe. It also includes many Central Asian languages like the Anatolian families and Iranian families, and even stretches across to the Indic families of northern India. Languages seldom conform to political boundaries, but are often diffused through political conquest. Some countries have official languages, like the map we just saw, but that doesn't mean those are the only languages spoken there. Geographically, we can see the imprint of languages on the landscape. This map of the West Bank is an example of all three of these. Orthography is the system of writing used by a language. You can see here the switch from Hebrew to Arabic characters. The toponyms, or place names, also reflect these linguistic origins. And if we were to draw an isogloss around each of these languages, we would see it correspond pretty well to these place name and orthographic changes. This map is from a popular series of dialect maps that compare the way things are pronounced or the terms that are used around the country. These are a kind of isogloss too. Religion can be generally defined as a system of beliefs that defines conduct. It can affect dress, diet, language, government, women's rights, money and spending, environmental attitudes, schools. In fundamentalist groups, the tenets of their faith are strictly adhered to, while in secular groups, religion may be practiced, but is not a tangible influence on daily life. Proselytizing is the act of attempting to convert others to your religion. In the U.S., freedom of religion is emphasized, but many of our laws are based on Christianity. Some groups press for increasing fundamentalism, imposing the morals of their faith on the whole state or country, while others assert that religion has no part in government and should be left to the individual to practice. Some countries have official religions, but nations with more than one major religion often suffer internal conflict based on those religions, such as the Rohingya crisis in Myanmar or the ongoing tensions in Sri Lanka. Religion is the root of some of the world's most bitter conflicts, even though most religions preach tolerance to one degree or another. This map shows some of the world's major religions. There are many others not shown here. Let's cover some of these major religions briefly. Judaism is one of the big three major world religions that originated in the Middle East. It predates Christianity and is also monotheistic, meaning there's one God. Politically, Judaism is part of the world stage most directly in Israel, which is an area of much conflict, also largely rooted in religion. Jews and Arabs have been killing each other in this part of the world for centuries, and political solutions seem to do little to bridge the deep cultural divide. Jews have also been persecuted in Europe for centuries, being kicked out of many places, and of course wiped out in massive numbers during the Holocaust. Christianity evolved from Judaism, particularly following the teachings of Jesus and the development of the New Testament. It also originated in the Middle East, but spread very quickly through Europe thanks to the dominance of the Roman Empire, and was later spread globally by European colonialism. Christians have also been known to promote conflict and genocide, seen in early history with the Crusades, and later in global conquests, which exterminated non-Christians. Wars have also been fought between sects of Christianity, with Catholics facing off against Protestants in many countries. This map shows the rapid spread from 300 to 600 CE, and of course our earlier map showed that it now covers much of the globe. Islam is the other major religion to originate in the Middle East. Islam acknowledges Christian Jesus as a prophet, but not as the Messiah, and is based on the teachings of Muhammad, who is considered to be the ultimate prophet. He lived some 600 years after Jesus. The two principal sects are divided mainly on leadership of the faith. Shia believe that the descendants of Muhammad should be the imam or leader, while Sunni adherents believe that the imam should be chosen from leading scholars of the faith, not unlike the way the Pope is chosen. There is a popular misconception that the Muslim world and the Middle East are synonymous, but in fact there are far more Muslims in Indonesia than anywhere else. Hinduism is the dominant religion of India, but it can be found in other places where Hindus have settled. Hinduism is polytheistic with many gods rather than the single god of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Two key aspects of this faith are reincarnation and the caste system. Reincarnation is the idea that after you die, your soul will be reborn into another physical shell. These rebirths offer the opportunity to make spiritual progress, to achieve a pure soul, and rebirth is the product of unfulfilled desires. The caste system is a tangible aspect of Hinduism that is losing popularity among younger urban Hindus. There are 4 main castes, or social classes, and thousands of subcastes. The highest caste are the Brahmin, or scholarly or priestly class. Next is the warrior or ruling caste, followed by merchants and artisans, and then manual laborers. Outside of the system, beneath all of these, are the Dalit, or untouchables, who perform tasks that make them permanently unclean, such as cleaning bathrooms or tanning leather. You are born into your caste, and you cannot leave, and it determines your social and economic opportunities in life. In areas where this is practiced rigorously, you may not even speak to someone outside your caste, and no one is to touch the untouchables, hence the name. In recent decades, laws have been introduced to prevent discrimination against lower castes, but inequality still very much exists, and caste-based violence, particularly against Dalits, still occurs. Sikhism is another faith that originated in India. It's a blend of Hinduism and Islam and has a strong concentration in northwest India. There are also sizable diaspora populations around the world, particularly in Australia and Canada. It's also monotheistic and centers around practicing one's faith by coping with everyday problems. Many Sikhs also believe that the body should be as God intended and do not consume alcohol or other drugs and do not cut their hair or nails. Reincarnation is part of Sikhism, like Hinduism, and the idea of karma, or what goes around comes around, impacts one's rebirth. Buddhism is more widespread across Asia and is centered around the Buddha, who is the awakened one and the embodiment of perfection. The focus is on personal spiritual development rather than the worship of a god. Buddhism also includes the principles of reincarnation and karma, and change is a fundamental part of life. A key practice of Buddhism is meditation, to quiet the mind and gain insight and enlightenment. There are several other dominant religions in Asia as well, many of which focus on spiritual development rather than worship. Many other world religions celebrate various aspects of nature rather than gods. These are grouped here by type rather than name. The map shown here gives you an idea of the complexities of mapping religion in a region. While we've talked about the major religions of a region, they're rarely homogeneous unless mandated by law, and even then, there are always those who will practice their own beliefs, often in secret. Religion is deeply embedded in our culture, and it affects how we dress, what we eat, and even our relationship with the land.